we'll get to that later. Here we have the first two players, as you mentioned, Mono Red Aggro playing against Blue White Artifacts. We mentioned that yesterday. Blue White Artifacts is not a deck you're used to seeing on the ladder too much, so you have some extra percentage points from people not playing optimally against you, or not knowing how to sideboard, or sometimes not even knowing what your cards do. So Arne, walk me through this.
Yeah, so the main two pieces here are Simulacrum Synthesizer, which is the engine card. Whenever any artifact enters that costs mana value 3 or more, you get a big construct token that grows and grows and grows with the more artifacts you have. And then United Battlefront is the new addition that powers out the deck, that cheats on mana, that finds you your pieces. You can theoretically find a Synthesizer and a free drop. You can find 2 Synthesizer, make 2 constructs immediately upon casting a Battlefront. And then you have Braided Net as an incredible engine piece to draw through your deck, repurposing Bay to find you the Synthesizers, and just various artifact removal and spring-loaded Saw Blades, Perilous Snare, and other artifacts to fill and round out the deck.
Something I want to mention is that United Battlefront is also a great card that helps you with your sideboard options. Because not only do you get to play the resting piece in the sideboard, but you technically almost have 6, right? Because United Battlefront, yeah, I mean, if you're feeling lucky, you're going to hit that. So that's another good use of that card, that it sort of amplifies your sideboard as well.
Absolutely. Temporary lockdown, 4 copies in generic sideboard, for example. That's certainly going to come in against Mono Red Aggro. One of the best sideboard cards against the aggressive strategy.
Looks like we have some mulligan decisions here. Let's see if we can take a look at the Mono Red deck as well. Yeah, this is pretty standard, right?
Can you see how much shorter the deck list already is?
Yes.
17 mountains filling up the mana base.
The most played card in the tournament, by the way, basic mountain.
Yep. Yeah, we have a 1-off and otherwise only 4 offs in the spell section here. We have 8 1-drops.
Wait. Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, we have no Swift Spears, so interesting choice there. And then we have the new Terzor Lightshader, 4 copies. That is also an interesting slot. It gives you a little bit of card selection, a little bit better against flooding. You know, the deck does play 23 lands. If you draw a little bit of an awkward combination of lands and spells, Terzor can mitigate that, and then the rest of the package.
What's the appeal of playing Mono Red instead of, you know, some of the other options? There is it Prowess, there is Gruul Prowess. What's the appeal of playing Mono Red?
I think the big appeal is the mana base. The 4 Rockface Village is an incredible card in these Mono Red decks. I think it's really underrated. Like, it's outrageously good, especially against all the white control decks. It's just clean. It gets to use Sunspine Links at its best. We have here in Alessandra's list, we have the full 4 copies in the sideboard to punish all those 3-color decks, maybe
Domain players,
Pixie, or Domain even. Yeah, it can come in against a lot of decks. So Mono Red is just clean, it's aggressive, it's powerful, it plays the best red cards.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's that's pretty much the reason for it.
Yeah, it's a very efficient deck, lots of cheap cards. I really like the Village. 4 copies of that lets you, you know, your deck is so well built against the Sorcery Sweepers. Looks like the game 1 is underway. So Thomas with a mulligan here, going to be on the play with his Azorius artifact deck. Starts on a Restless Anchorage and passes the turn to Alessandro, who wastes no time and plays a Hired Claw on turn 1. So exactly what the red deck wants to do. 1-drop on turn 1. You really want to curve out. One of the decks that you really want to mulligan aggressively with.
And then we have a Glayfire Bricks, standard All-Star, not really, just a
limited All-Star.
Limited All-Star, it was for sure.
Wait, was it even a limited All-Star? No, not really.
I mean, you played it when you had it in your I don't know, blue-white artifacts deck. I didn't draft Ixalan much, to be honest with you. I think it's just a 1-off in his deck, or maybe a 2-off. It's a 2-off. It works well with repurposing Bay. And it just ups your artifact counts for the construct. I think that craft could actually come up in the late game as well. Like making two more artifact creatures, buffing your team. That could buff your constructs from my 6/6 to like 10/10 for an important lethal swing or something. Importantly, Thomas won the die roll and can play a Perilous Snare here with one of his main interactive pieces on turn 3 to take away the Manifold Mouse here.
It's funny how the mono red deck is, you know, you can almost build it Bloomborough block constructed, or like Bloomborough constructed. A lot of the mice. You know, from that side, we're also going to see that in the second feature match. But back to the first one, Alessandro only attacking with the Hard Claw. That doesn't actually have great synergy with the mouse, and passes the turn. So not a great start here.
No, he wanted Terza, he wanted Nemesis there. Oh my!
There we go. So the new card, United Battlefront. Let's see if we're gonna find something like a synthesizer. I think I did see one.
And a braided net. That's got to be a pretty tempting combination.
You love to see it.
Make a 4/4, get your tumbling magnet into play. Braided net, a little bit of fun. But yeah, this is amazing.
Get a token in the process, no big deal.
A little bit of scrying. Yeah, and Alessandro not playing a creature there is a bit of a tell of what kind of hand he has, of course. If Thomas picks up on that, like, so likely burn spells, I would guess at that point.
Exactly. If you're Thomas, what are you thinking? Like, you're probably sitting on a Monster's Rage, burn spells you can't really use.
Yeah, exactly. It's a 5/5.
Yeah, this was a pretty big swing in the game. I think Alessandro is gonna have a pretty tough time coming back from this.
Yeah, and there you really see the power of United Battlefront. He just put 2 cards worth 6 mana total on turn 4 into play.
Mm-hmm.
And he got to dig for them as well. That is incredibly strong.
All right, let's see if Alessandro has anything that he can use here to get through that construct token. Even Lightning Strike's not really going to help at this situation.
Yeah, I see a Burst Lightning, a Lightning Strike, and another Lightning Strike maybe. I think he's probably just priced into just using 2 removal spells. You know, the good old mono red. Sometimes you just got to use the 2 removal spells to kill the big creature. In this case, a colorless construct.
Oh, okay, so Alessandro decides to pass the turn, maybe just valuing the burn spells in a way where he just wants to point them at Thomas's face. He does have an extra land, so he can kick that Burst Lightning. That's 4 double Lightning Strike. So we're looking at 10 damage already out of his hand. So yeah, maybe he just wants to find 7 more. He can also trigger that Hard Claw when he attacks. So yeah, maybe he's just banking on the fact that, yeah, my deck has a lot of burn. I mean, I'm not really going to win the game by attacking anymore, most likely, if I use most of my burn spells. So certainly also a valid approach. And looks like there is another United Battlefront, certainly the best card in Thomas's deck. And what do we get this time? And it looks like it's exactly the same. So yeah, there's going to be a couple more construct tokens made this turn, so I'm not quite sure if the burn plan is gonna, if there's gonna be enough time to execute that.
Yeah.
These constructs are gonna get out of hand really quickly.
Yeah, he's gonna get 3 of them now.
Oh, another synthesizer on the top, thank you very much.
So these construct tokens are 10-10 right now. Yeah, I think this game is gonna last maybe one more turn.
One more turn. At this point, Thomas is thinking, what are the only ways I can lose, right? You already have enough. You already have, you know, giant construct tokens. You're already, you know, creating all the value. At this point, you have to think, okay, how do I not throw this game away by being too aggressive, or, you know, maybe dying unnecessarily to a Monster's Rage with a haste creature, something along those lines.
Well, with 30 toughness,
it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
Difficult to die to Monster's Rage, but I found a way he could die.
Okay.
By making his construct 17 power, perhaps, or something like that, very big, and then attacking into a Screaming Nemesis.
Okay,
that would not be...
or blocking it, yeah.
Or blocking it.
Yeah, they're always out. So one of the constructs gets in there, gets blocked by the Hard Claw. End of turn, we're going to use double Lightning Strike, so Thomas goes down to 11.
Fighting the good fight here. But
yeah, and he sees the writing on the wall, too much toughness there with all the constructs, and picks up the card. So Thomas picks up game number 1, and we're gonna take a look at the sideboards. Now it's gonna get interesting. Does the mono red aggro deck have any kind of shatter effects in the sideboard, or anything they could use for this matchup? But first, let's take a look at the Azorius list. What do we have here?
Yeah, this is huge, by the way, for Thomas to win game one. I think game one is the rougher of the two options between post-board and pre-board. 4 lockdowns, they're certainly going to come in. And then we're looking at 3 copies of Get Lost potentially, if he wants to have a little bit more interaction. I really dislike Get Lost against specifically mono-red and aggressive decks. So if he can get by without having to sideboard it in, that would be awesome. Looking at his deck, he can certainly cut those 2 copies of Cryptic Code and maybe the 2 copies of Kayla's Reconstruction and then just add those 4 lockdowns in. I think that's a pretty reasonable swap to make. Then his deck looks like it doesn't really have any like bad cards, and I don't think he technically needs to get lost, but he might still want to bring it in on the draw just as a sort of insurance policy.
Right.
Not great to give your valiant mice opponent some maps, but it's fine.
Exactly. Tell me why you don't like Get Lost against the aggressive decks, because there are some players that are not as competitive. They might be thinking, hey, it's a removal spell, it costs 2 mana. Why wouldn't I bring it in against an aggro deck?
Yeah, it's especially brutal with those valiant, the Heartfire Hero and the Empower Challenger. That those map tokens are really good with those. Okay. And yeah, just it's not a great trade. I mean, if you have to kill 1-drop with it, they get 2 map tokens. Map tokens are, I don't know what they are, like a fourth of a card, maybe a third
of a card,
right? Like that. So it's really not optimal.
Yeah, the problem is you don't really trade 1 for 1. You kill the creature, you lose the Get Lost, but they get 2 map tokens, so they're up, some resources on you, and this deck is really good at using the map tokens. Here we see the Azorius Artifacts deck. Again, the main deck 60 cards, so you can see the United Battlefront there in the middle. Then you pick up from Tarkir Dragonstorm.
Yep, really streamlined, low to the ground, not doing much fancy things with repurposing Bay, not even trying to put a 4-drop into the deck or a 5-drop to go down the chain. Just really streamlined.
All synergy, all the time.
And 30 targets for United Battlefront, so that thing ain't missing.
Yeah, that we talked about that yesterday. Normally, when you play collected company decks, you have to run like 24 lands. You have to run for collected company, some removal or some interaction, and sometimes you can be low on creatures. This deck has 30 hits for United Battlefront, so you can ask Frank Karsten how good that is.
I think it's pretty good, yeah. And compared to collected company, the United Battlefront actually looks at 1 additional card as well. Yeah. So that higher the odds a little bit too.
All right, here we have the mono-red sideboard. Alessandro Ciccone. Talk to me about this one. What is he most likely bringing in, if anything?
Yeah, you were mentioning, you were asking if there's any artifact hate. It's literally 0 in the entire deck.
How about Sunspine Links?
Which, yeah, Sunspine Links, if you look at the mana base.
7 basics, 17 on basics.
You could bring it in. I mean, it's gonna deal some damage for sure.
Not great options though.
Yeah, it's not fantastic. I mean, this sideboard really, the Lithomantic, there aren't any targets for that. Torture Tower, not great. Crimson Pulse is grindy. It's good against like Pixie and mid-range decks.
Yeah, not really here against the synergy artifact deck that turns the corner super quickly with the constructs.
I think the only reasonable option would be the Lynx. But looking at his main deck, I guess the worst card perhaps is the Witchstalker Frenzy. Maybe he can get a construct with that if it's not out of size yet, but otherwise he's looking at like Shocks and Lightning Strikes as his like non-optimal cards. So it's not, I don't even know if the Sunspine Links is better than those.
Yeah, I think your best option if you're the mono-red aggro player is just trying to find a really fast hand and just, getting the game over in the first 4 turns or something along those lines.
Yeah, and definitely play around lockdown if you can a little bit, which the Lynx also does, right? The only sweeper he has to worry about is the lockdown. So yeah, I mean, you could certainly convince me to cut like a Burst Lightning and a Witchstalker Frenzy for at least 2 Lynx. That seems pretty reasonable.
Looking at the sideboard options, I would just be trying to mulligan into a really fast hand and trying to find that Heartfire Hero plus Manifold Mouse opener and just sort of ignoring my opponent's deck. No need to try to over sideboard if the game goes long, I'm probably not going to be favored anyway. So let's just look for the fast opener.
I think that's a pretty reasonable strategy, but I would definitely say that you have to be a little bit careful about lockdown with that strategy. If you keep a hand that just has low-costed creatures, you might just lose the game on turn 3.
That's the downside,
But he does have 8 free drops that hit pretty hard. so that they work well against lockdown. So if he has one of those.
Looks like the game is underway. Thomas took a mulligan, so he's starting on 6 cards. Alessandro kept 7, and he does have a turn 1 Hard Claw again. So 1 drop, not necessarily the one he would have liked to see, not the Heartfire Hero that combos so well with the Manifold Mouse, but still a great opener here. 2 drop, Emberheart Challenger. One of the many haste creatures in the deck, so get in 4/4 and pass the turn to Thomas.
Fantastic start by Alessandro.
Oh wow, yeah, looks like Thomas did bring in those Get Lost, and he's going to use one of them on the Challenger right away on his own turn. So Challenger hits the bin, but Alessandro does get the 2 map tokens, just like you mentioned.
I don't know if I love doing the main phase Get Lost there. There's no Snakeskin Veils, no Spell Pierces he has to worry about. He could have waited a little bit. I think if he wants to play around like Rockface Village, targeting a Challenger, he would have been actually happy if that would have happened. So
because you just waste your entire turn
exactly.
doing that. Yeah.
And considering he has 4 lockdowns in his deck, he might want to like kill the Nemesis here if it comes into play on turn 3 with haste, and then hope to draw into a lockdown.
Speaking of lockdowns, that certainly is a, you know, it gives you a better reason to include Get Lost in your deck when you have 4 lockdowns, right? Yeah, I'm going to give you some map tokens, but I also have 4 lockdowns I can play next turn to get rid of those.
Yeah.
So it's not as bad as if you're playing, you know, let's say Domain Overlords, and you bring in a bunch of copies of Get Lost, and you don't really have the lockdowns there, for example. Then it becomes a problem when you give your opponent too much value.
And there you go. Alessandro kept the 2-lander and is now using those maps to dig towards the 3rd land. Unsuccessfully, but still adding a good amount of power here to the board.
Yeah, he was able to make, you know, decent use of the map tokens, growing that Hard Claw and digging towards the 3rd land. But Thomas is ready with the Snare, so once again he clears the board on turn 3, and he's under no more pressure, sitting pretty at 12 life.
Alessandro not being... The draws are not being kind to him. Again, no land. He was contemplating playing his Higher Claw last turn, but he, I think he correctly identified that if he would have done so, not cracked the map, a lockdown would have really blown him out. So heads up play by him there.
He is sitting on a couple of 1-mana instant speed cards. There's a Burst Lightning, there's a Monstrous Rage or 2. So yeah, we might be a turn or 2 away from a big attack.
Yeah, I also spotted a Lynx, so he definitely sighted some of them at least in, as we suspected. I'm also seeing, yeah, as you said, multiple copies of Burst Lightning, so he kept those in for a little bit burn.
Thomas uses a clay-fired bricks to get himself 2 life and a plains, and passes the turn.
Thomas really needs to find a United Battlefront, something powerful to take over the game. Because yeah, Alessandro missing land drops right now, but he still has a lot of cards in his hand, so if he gets to deploy all those cards, that might just be lethal damage. He
did just hit his 3rd land drop, so let's see if he has any of those 3-mana haste creatures, Screaming Nemesis and Tursa. The new pickup from Turkey or Dragonstorm. I think that card is, I don't want to say a sleeper, but it has so much potential. You get to use it in Reanimator decks. You get to use it in Jeskai Oculus to help you with you know, getting Oculus in the graveyard. You use Helping Hand. It's a decent creature for these red aggro decks, like you mentioned, to sort of mitigate the flooding issues. Another Get Lost takes care of the Hard Claw, and wow, Alessandro passes the turn, so that's not great.
Yeah, Alessandro really an awkward combination of cards here. He wants creatures in this matchup. He doesn't want all these burn spells or rages without creatures. What is this? Is this a Battlefront?
It is a United Battlefront. It's like, take a look at top 7. I see a Synthesizer.
Oh, he didn't hit that well. I think he hit a Saw Blades, which is 2-mana, deal 5 to a tapped.
It does make a construct though, so yeah.
Oh, it actually doesn't. It costs.
Oh wait, it costs 2 mana. Right. So it is sort of a brick, but at least you find your Synthesizer, so you're well set up for the long game.
Yes. Now he has his best card in play. I think I saw a Candy Trail in the land. He's contemplating if he should keep the Candy Trail It's essentially like 3 mana, draw a card, scry 2, gain 3 life. I think it's a pretty reasonable keep here. His hand looks like 2 lands and a bricks. So his hand is definitely on empty right now.
Especially if he makes the educated guess that Alessandro is most likely sitting on some burn spells, so keeping a Candy Trail is almost like, you know, discarding one of your burn spells from your hand.
And for what it's worth, he has 3 basics actually out of his 5 lands, so the link's not that great here.
Something to keep in mind when you play against these red decks is, you know, often it is almost always better usually to play your dual lands or triple lands first to give you more options, but after sideboard playing against these red decks, playing out basics first is often better unless it, you know, really screws with your mana, because you're then going to take less damage from the Sunspine links, which is exactly what happens in this situation. So Thomas loses 2 life and is no longer going to be able to gain life.
The link's looking really, really good here. Candy Trail and Bricks both gain a little bit of life. And link's shutting that off, and there's no removal in Thomas' hand. He has a lockdown and another Battlefront here in his scry. He's presumably putting the lockdown to the bottom and keeping the Battlefront, hoping to hit a Perilous Snare. Or maybe a Saw Blades actually if this link's attacks. But bad news is he has... Oh, what he's going to do here.
So we're going to craft.
We're going to craft. Okay, So what does this do? Gosh.
It is the Blade Wheel Chariot, and it says tap 2 other untapped artifacts you control. This vehicle becomes an artifact creature until end of turn, and it has crew 1, and it is a 5/5.
Okay, that's going to be able to block the links. All right, that's nice. Okay, pretty cool, pretty cool.
There's so much play to this blue-white deck. Like, so many cool things you can do that even if you played a lot of limited with these cards, you probably don't even know what are all these craft options on the back sides of the card. Back to Alessandro. He does a lot of burn. He does have that Monstrous Rage as well, so we'll see if he goes for a big attack here.
Yeah, the Lynx only has 2... Well, with the map tokens are crucial here. Like, the Rage alone doesn't let the Lynx survive, but with one of... against the 5/5, but if one of those maps...
Is that double Rage and Burst Lightning? We might actually see Alessandro win this turn.
Well, the Rockface Village is only cast for creatures. I think he has Burst Lightning, Rage, and an Ember Heart.
Okay, so he doesn't use... Okay, I was thinking maybe use the 2 map tokens, grow the links, Rage. How much is that? It's 7. If you find a non-line on the top, it's 7, 10.
It might just be lethal.
Well, no, it probably wouldn't be enough. But with the Ember Heart Challenger, yeah, that's going to be different. So
it's a 6 power prowess creature now.
Yeah, Alessandro starts with the Challenger in his own main phase still, plays the Monstrous Rage, trying to find that 5th land. And this is where, you know, mono red is better than some of the 2-color decks, because you no longer worry about possibly finding a tapped land off the top, one of those fast lands coming in tapped. It is all going to be untapped red sources. So
I think I count exactly lethal.
Is it lethal?
Yeah, that's exactly 10 here. So the Ember is a 6 right now, and the Lynx is a 5.
So there's a roll token.
Blocks the 5.
Prowess trigger 2/2 +2 from the rate, so that's 6, and 5 is 11.
And then the Lynx will get trample here and deal another 4. No, another 3 exactly, and then the prowess trigger number 2 will put the challenger up to 7.
Okay.
So 7 + 3 here.
Wow, looks like Alessandro is going to be able to find lethal actually after stumbling for a little bit on 2 lands, then passing the turn on 3 mana. But yeah, with all these Monstrous Rages, he did find a turn when Thomas tapped out. Didn't really find anything particularly useful with that United Battlefront.
I just want to point out, I mean, well played by Alessandro, of course. We're going to game 3 here, but I want to point out that Thomas chose to miss a land drop last turn, playing around another copy of Sunspine Link, so he's on top of his game. He didn't play that Fountain Potent he has in hand. And yeah, we're going to game 3 here.
Yeah, well done by both players.
Yep.
Anything changes here, you know, with play and draw? If you're the mono red player, are you maybe thinking Sunspine Links on the draw, 4 mana, a little bit too expensive?
Not necessarily. I mean, on the draw, you do have a higher likelihood of hitting your 4th land drop because you do see one more card. So it doesn't actually become that much worse. And on the draw, with an aggressive deck, against a deck that has like lockdowns on various pieces of interaction,
you want to diversify the...
Yeah, like the games slow down anyhow. Like you're likely not able to rush them down because they have the play advantage. So having more power in your deck to play those longer games is an avenue I like to take when playing these aggressive decks. Yeah, and from Thomas's side, he now saw a little bit. He knows about the links now. I mean, he's not going to bring in the Disdainful Stroke, but yeah, he has a little bit more information, and he might want to change his deck. Something like a Get Lost, that definitely is a card I would be a little bit less inclined to have on the play.
Because you just want to be proactive rather than...
Absolutely. And yeah, as we saw in that game, I think those map tokens were really crucial. If that would have been just, for example, go for the throat, that it could have made the difference in that game. Because
yeah, the map tokens were crucial in that game for sure, yeah. All right, quick reminder where we are in the tournament. This is round number 10 of the Regional Championship Bologna. We had a little over 1,000 players on day 1. The first day was 8 rounds of standard with a cut of 18 or more points, so 6-2 or better, or if somebody had a really slow day of picking up 3 draws and 5 wins, they also made it to day 2. Yeah. So now we have about 150 players here. On day 2, we're going to play 6 more rounds of Swiss before we cut to the top 8. And what are the invites that the players can pick up? There is, for the first 48 players are going to pick up an invite for the next RC. So yeah, the tournament didn't go as well as you hoped, but you get to play the next one at least. The top 36 players, they pick up an invite for Pro Tour Atlanta. That's the Edge of Eternity's Pro Tour. It is going to be in the modern format later this year. I think it's September or late September, maybe October. And the first 4 players, they also, on top of all of this, get the invite to the next 3 RCs. And then the first 2 players, the finalists, they will lock up an invite to Worlds, the $1 million tournament. So pretty good stuff here today. Lots to play for. Also more than $100,000 in cash prizes. But back to game number 3. Thomas on the play. Starts with some surveil action, keeps it on top, and passes back to Alessandro. And let's see if Alessandro has another one of those really fast red openers. No 1-drop. Ooh, you hate to see that.
I want to see some Terza action. Give me some new cards. Show us the power of that card.
Wow, Sanctuary on turn 2. What does that tell you? Is Alessandro just kind of bluffing, not having another one, playing a colorless land?
Well,
it's one of the 2, right? Yeah.
It could also be with Terza in your deck. You actually want to get the useful lands out of the way so you can discard the mountains. That changes the equation a little bit,
fair enough. Fair enough. Play the utility lands first. Discard the mountains later.
Yeah.
Synthesizer turn 3. So yeah, Thomas, nothing in the first couple turns. He doesn't really have a whole lot he can do in the first few turns proactively, but he does have one of the best cards in his deck, the Simulacrum Synthesizer on turn 3. Keeps both cards on top.
Wow. That's got to be frightening for Alessandro. He's probably thinking that the Battlefront is coming. Oh, there we go. My wishes have been fulfilled.
Okay. So we have a Manifold Mouse and also Terza. So an attack for 5 incoming. And like you mentioned, discarding one of those mountains and also Sanctuary, drawing 2 fresh cards. There's a Hearthfire Hero, and I think that was a Monster's Rage or another Terza.
I think that was a Nemesis.
Oh, Screaming Nemesis. Right. Okay. Attack for 5, puts Thomas to 15, and now what is he going to be able to do with Synthesizer on the battlefield? United Battlefront would probably be the best card here to fire off this 4 mana.
Fomori Vault. It's one of those extra special cards that was in like one of those special sets. That, I don't know which one exactly, but like you can discard a card and look at a lot of cards on top of your library.
Was it in OTJ Outlaws?
Yeah, I think that was the special set it was in. It's quite strong. It's it digs deep to your through your deck for the number of artifacts you have. Braided Net, the play.
There we go.
Starting with a 4/4 construct, building the board, and having that effect of Braided Net to tap one of the opposing creatures. Very nice against Screaming Nemesis specifically. Don't have to block that. Don't want to block that one.
Of note is that Thomas has 3 non-basic lands in play.
Yep, that is a little bit more painful for him. All right, Alessandro having to read all the cards. No surprise there. He, alone from his 75, he doesn't really have much experience, or much respect at least for artifacts, having literally 0 artifact interaction, which that's not uncommon, to be fair.
That's the upside of playing a rogue deck, right? You're running a deck that your opponents likely have not prepared against. And there is a Sunspine Link, so yeah, lots of options for Alessandro here. Let's see if he goes for that, or if he has a good attack, maybe a way to remove the construct.
A Rage would be nice here for him, because I mean, what do you do if you're Thomas here? I suppose you're just going to tap the Manifold Mouse regardless, because
to play around the Rage?
Yeah, because the Terza actually doesn't combine that well with the Rage. It's still going to get traded with the construct. So yeah, I guess you just tap the Manifold Mouse.
And Thomas double checking how many cards do you need to have in the graveyard to actually use the second ability of Terza, which also comes up every once in a while.
Yeah, it looks like both players having pretty good draws here. I like this. Always down for some good magic. Nemesis, Sunspine Links, the options here pretty much. Those are the main ones. I think there's...
If Alessandro has a Monster's Rage, then he could also play Nemesis, which could lead to Thomas tapping the Nemesis instead of the mouse, and then maybe he gets in for a good attack.
Yeah, I don't think I see one. He kind of wants to play, if he wants to go Nemesis, he also wants to play the hero, so he can buff the hero with the mouse. At that point, he's tapped out, so Thomas can just tap the Nemesis, and there's no damage output.
Has to do with pre-combat,
I don't know, like the Lynx, also the Lynx seems kind of enticing to me too. I mean, deals 3 damage. The Braided Net makes that Nemesis just a little awkward. So I wouldn't mind just playing the Lynx here, I think. Yeah,
I also like having the Lynx on the battlefield because Thomas does have a lot of ways to gain life.
Yeah, including the Candy Trail that is in play right now. Is gain free up there. It's definitely a tricky spot. He could love the Rage. Yeah, he has another Manifold Mouse, a Heartfare Hero, a Burst Lightning, and a Sunspine Lynx. So no combat trick. Just that Burst Lightning, which now he's just going to tap out. Okay, he's just going to go wide.
Yeah, I think he wants to play for the long game here. Like you said, plays the hero pre-combat so he can target it with the mouse, get an extra counter. I like that his mana values are also spread evenly, 1, 2, 3, 4, so kind of plays around the lockdown to some degree as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, put a counter on the hero and move to combat. Would you like to tap anything? Do you even do anything now if you're Thomas? Like, do you even tap anything? I think he's saying, yeah, if you want to attack,
well,
sure, maybe you tap the Nemesis.
I think I tap. I mean, the Nemesis is essentially like free. Like, it's essentially a question: do you want to gain free life or not?
Oh wow,
he chose to not gain free life. He values those Braided Net counters. And now he's going to tap free mana. What is it? A Perilous Snare? Yep.
It is. Perilous Snare.
Fantastic here.
That is a much better way of dealing with the Nemesis than something like the spring-loaded Saw Blades would be.
He has at least 2 copies of those in hand. Yeah, I think I would have gained those free life there with the Braided Net, to be honest, but we'll see if it's going to bite him down the line.
So Thomas deals with the Nemesis, passes the turn back, sitting on 4 lands. I think Alessandro is going to be very happy about this. Sure, I mean, you got a 6/6 construct. You did take care of my Nemesis, but at this point, I might be thinking about the burn plan.
Yeah, exactly. And you could still go wide and, like, yeah. He does have that Burst Lightning and the Lynx. That's already 7 damage in total right now. And the Hardfire hero can actually attack here. That is huge. That is actually... Oh, no, sorry. I forgot for a minute about the tumbling magnet, sorry. The braided net preventing the Hardfire hero.
I think attacking in this game is going to be pretty tough now with all the constructs, with the braided net. I'm not quite sure if there's going to be a way to, you know, get a profitable attack.
He could play the Manifold Mouse with Offspring and go really wide, like withholding the links. But getting the links down on the battlefield seems so important against that candy trail.
Yeah.
Just preventing that life gain and going for the burn route. I really like that.
The problem with going wide is Thomas also gets to do that just by playing cards out of his hand, right? He just goes wide by playing cards, making construct tokens thanks to the synthesizer.
Exactly. So the burn plan, or you can have a combination of both, or like the links at least, it puts a creature to play and prevents a life gain. Seems like he's going for a rock face village on the Hardfire hero.
Interesting.
I think, it's like...
Wow, okay.
It's just gonna get tapped, yeah. He's just spent a lot of mana on that, and it didn't really do much for him.
Yeah, so it was targeted with the Manifold Mouse as well, and now the Braided Net tapped the hero. So Alessandro down to 2 mana now, and deploys a Hired Claw, realizing temporary lockdown would not really be that amazing anymore with the construct tokens. I didn't love this turn.
Yeah, no, I mean neither. I think I would have rather seen the Sunshine or the Manifold Mouse Offspring.
You spend 3 mana. You spend most of your available mana to just deploy one drop. I mean, you did get a counter off of the Braided Net, but
I mean, this could just speak to the experience of not having any experience in this matchup from Alessandro's side. He's like, the Braided Net is when you play against a card like that is a weird effect in Constructed you don't see often. And he was just maybe a little unfamiliar, thought, hey, I can get a big double strike hit in here against these 6/6s, which, yeah, the hero looks great against them, but the Braided Net stifled that plan effectively. But yeah, another land, another non-basic land, means the Lynx gets a little bit more powerful here.
Exactly. Tough decision for Thomas. He does want the Surveil trigger off of the land, but another non-basic, when you know your opponent has the Sunspine Lynxes, not great. Picks up an island off the top.
Yeah, Thomas really looking for more things to trigger the Simulacrum, which he doesn't have any right now. That was a turn of...
Also not a great turn, yeah.
Yeah, that was certainly good for Alessandro here. No United Battlefront, any shenanigans like that.
Surveil trigger, crack the Candy Trail, and most likely pass the turn.
Well, he has the option of saw blading the Hardfire hero, which I kind of like, to be honest. Gets it off the way. He goes to 12. He's still at a pretty healthy life total. And, you know, makes those constructs a little bit bigger for the future. I like that play. And yeah, it looks like he had 3 of them in his hand, so 2 left.
Yeah, get rid of that hero before, you know, something horrible happens with multiple Monstrous Rages. So I like that play as well. Back to Alessandro now, who once again has the option of playing the Sunspine Lynx. There's a Burst Lightning as well. Currently not super useful for dealing with the constructs, but 4 damage to the face, that's pretty relevant when you have a Sunspine Lynx and your opponent has 4 non-basics in play. So you're basically, assuming Thomas doesn't have a way of dealing with the Lynx, you're 1 Burst Lightning or 1 Sunspine Lynx away from dealing 12.
Yep. I
think that would be my my game plan right now.
Absolutely, I'm with you on that. I think he's certainly regretting his last turn decisions with that Lynx, because the Candy Trail gaining him free, but...
Yeah, and he might choose to play the mouse here, like you mentioned, try to go wide, you know, play enough creatures that I would sort of overpower the magnet. Maybe he's making the read of, hey, you didn't make any constructs last turn, you didn't play anything out of your hand that could trigger the synthesizer, maybe you just don't have anything. Maybe I'm just maybe all I need is to get through these 2 construct tokens, but yeah, the longer you give your opponent also, the more time they have to draw something that's going to trigger the synthesizer. So Manifold Mouse with the Offspring pre-combat earns a braided net.
That was a small victory for Alessandro, being able to get a braided net counter there.
Yeah.
But I see what Thomas is thinking. Thomas wants to crack that braided net anyhow, because he wants to get another construct and draw like 6 cards with it. That's why he was using the more aggressively, playing around Monsters Rage.
Look at that. Thomas picked up the best card in this situation. United Battlefront. And yeah, there are some goodies. There is another synthesizer. There was also a temporary lockdown.
And a Perilous Snare, so those are the options to choose from. Those are some really good ones. The lockdown does remove a lot here. And he's going to go with the lockdown. He's going to kill off his own construct tokens, but is also getting rid of everything besides the Terza. And he can of course get his new construct fresh out of the factory after the lockdown trigger resolves, stacking his triggers correctly. And he's also going to get another scry. That was just incredible, to be honest.
What a blowout.
Yeah, really got punished for going white there, Alessandro did. It's like, yeah, I mean, maximizing the links, now that the Candy Trail was gone as well, is... You can always think like, hey, if I wait with the links, maybe he plays another land and another damage.
That is definitely valid.
Certainly a valid reasoning. And with the Candy Trail gone, you also didn't have like any apparent life gain that you could have prevented with it.
Yeah, just didn't work out. That temporary lockdown off the top or off of the United Battlefront. That was one of the biggest possible blowouts that turn. But hey, not all is lost. Thomas is still at 12. You still have that Sun Smiling, and you still have that Burst Lightning. So you're still 4 damage away of possibly winning the game.
Confirming how he's cried there. I always hate when I play like Arena and I just look at something else for a second when they scry and then like, oh no, how did they scry? And I can't ask him.
I wish there would be like a little sidebar on Arena that would keep track of what happened in the last couple of turns. Yeah, like, you know, keep this on top or not, or like sometimes they reveal cards, you want to let it, you know, be somewhere on the screen, but, you know, minor improvements. Back in the game, there is another Terza and Screaming Nemesis in play.
Alessandro is just really sneaking out the maximum damage. Is this Lynx ever going to get played?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point it's clear that he's kind of trying to bait Thomas into playing more lands, but we know, obviously, with perfect information that Thomas actually chose not to play one of his lands last game, so he is definitely aware of the possibility of the Lynx.
Oh my, playing a Perilous Snare, making 2 8/8s, no big deal. Isn't that just crazy? Against a deck with no artifact removal and Burst Lightning as the removal spell?
Yeah, that's a pretty good value. Yeah, that's a pretty good turn.
Some of the blue-white lists used to run Steel Seraph, so you can give lifelink to one of those big constructs, or fly over.
I thought this deck was... I wouldn't say tier 1 before Terrakir Dragonstorm. It was one of those rogue decks that you would sometimes, you know, play against on Arena. Not something I would bring to a highly competitive tournament. But with United Battlefront, that card is so insane in this deck that I think this is now a legit contender for, you know, tier 1.5, maybe tier 1.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, certainly. I mean, it's making a decent case, or Thomas is making a very decent case for it. And here, 2 mana to craft the Braided Net, get 2 more constructs, and have a, oh my god, have it draw 10 available to you with the Braided Quipo. And yeah, Alessandro is like, okay, well, I'm never going to cast this Lynx, you know what?
Yeah, GG there. Congratulations to Thomas Chenery. Good work with his blue-white artifacts deck. Moving on to 9-1. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm really impressed by his play. As I said yesterday, we already had the pleasure to cover him there. He's 2-0 in a feature match, so that's certainly giving him some luck. And absolutely amazing. It's his first regional championship